The other really big topic that we'll be looking at in this course is epistemology. There's really no reason actually to watch this video at the beginning of the course, because the first 3 weeks at least will be almost entirely taken up with metaphysical questions. There are always epistemological issues that are at least implicit when we talk about philosophy or anything philosophically. Maybe there are implicit epistemological issues in everyday life. In fact, I think there are. But our focus in the first 3 weeks will be on metaphysics and on the question of being and things like that, and various metaphysical questions like the existence of God and the possible immortality of the soul. By week 4, when we read Descartes, we will be forced to deal with epistemological issues. So you don't have to watch this video now. I mean, you don't have to watch it at all, I guess, but you should certainly start thinking about epistemological issues by week 4. And epistemology is, again, break down the words. We're usually working with Greek words here. Epistemology consists of 2 words, episteme, which meant knowledge in Greek, and the word logos, which generally means reason or study. And so when we do epistemology, we're simply reasoning about knowledge. So you might say that the fundamental epistemological question is, what can I know and how? So problems of knowledge are the problems of epistemology, and we'll see that they're dealt with in various ways. We won't read any ancient philosophy that's focused on the question of knowledge, but certainly the Greeks, contemporaries, rough contemporaries of people like Plato and Aristotle, understood that there were certain difficulties with the idea of knowledge, and Plato himself was concerned with this. And in Plato's work, oftentimes the fundamental question is, what's the difference between opinion and knowledge? What's the difference between having an opinion, which the Greeks called doxa, and knowing something, having episteme? That is a continuing philosophical problem, and one that is certainly unresolved into the present day. But the ancients, there were schools of philosophers. They're the ones who invented skepticism. And the problem of how one knows that you know. How do you know that you know? How do you verify that your opinion, which everyone has, opinion, belief, is anything more than a wild assertion about the way the world is? How would you actually ground that opinion in something that could guarantee it, or at least show you that it were true? How do you know that you know? It's a very deep problem. The skeptics of Plato's time, and a little bit before and after, they identified a very fundamental problem. A lot of ancient philosophy was based upon the insight, if you want to call it that I never experienced the world directly. The only thing I directly experience is how the world appears to me. So that you have a radical subjectivism or a radical relativism that is promoted by, say, thinkers like Protagoras, who came a little bit before Plato, who was famous for saying that man is the measure of all things. Of the things that are, that they are. Of the things that are not, that they are not. Which needs to be interpreted, that famous saying, and it has been interpreted in many ways, but it certainly points to a kind of a relativism. That is, whatever exists in the world, the only way I can be in touch with it is really through my own perceptions of it. And I could never hope to experience the world directly. That would be like, I don't know, inconceivable, really. So if we put these two things together, we have a belief, and we'll see that this belief is challengeable, that there is a world independent of us, our senses, our minds, our imagination, etc. The simple trivial objects like this cup have an independent existence, and that my experience of the cup is that, yes, all of my experiences of the cup are subjective. All the sensations I'm having of this cup right now are actually modes of consciousness, or maybe modes of my own body, if we think colors, the tactile impressions, sounds if I tap it, all of those things are really internal experiences that I am having. How do I know whether those internal experiences in some sense match up with the thing itself? Well, that raises, of course, a problem, because if indeed there is a world that's independent of me, that is made up of such objects, and other types of objects too, not just physical objects, but perhaps intelligible or ideal or thinkable objects, how would I ever know that my subjective impressions of those things actually truly represent the way those things actually are? Well, presumably, to really find out, I would have to be able to look at them both at once, to have my representation of the thing on the one hand, and the thing itself on the other, and see if the one resembled the other. A lot of ancient skeptics, I think, thought through to this point and then realized that that's just ridiculous. You can never compare your subjective impression with the thing itself, because all you ever have is your subjective impression. So this points to a very deep epistemological problem, and that is, I never can be sure, seemingly, follow this argument, whether my idea of the thing is actually true. If truth means correspondence of my idea with the thing in the world. This could lead to a position called skepticism, or perspectivism, but skepticism is really the basic idea. How do I know whether I know anything? Well, the skeptic says you don't know, and you never can, and various consequences, of course, follow from this. So that's just an example of maybe one epistemological question, but perhaps one of the deepest epistemological questions. Question of how my opinions and impressions and ideas of the world actually relate to the world itself, if at all. So epistemology will become a more and more important part of our inquiry, especially with week 4 with Descartes' meditation.